Hello and welcome. This is Bree Stedman, host of Own Your BS, the podcast, where your negative head talk and the bullshit stories you tell yourself become irrelevant, and solution focus creates a path of emotional confidence, clarity, and control. Hello and welcome to episode 13 of Own Your BS, the podcast. So a couple of weeks ago, I quit. I walked away. I proudly announced to the world that I was done. And when I started to talk to my mentors about this, they asked, "What's going on, Bree? What's making you say things like, I'm done?" Because if you know me at all, you'll know that I'm a fairly resilient person. And for me to declare I'm done, something pretty significant needs to have occurred in order for that to be my truth. And as we started to talk about it, and as I started to explore what was actually going on, it became very clear to me that what I was done with was force. I was so fed up, done with it, over and exhausted with constantly showing up, constantly looking at the next thing that needs to be done. Looking at the next sale, the next program, the next launch, the next. I felt like I was constantly running against this future idea of where I needed to be instead of just being able to fully surrender to the here and now. Now, in the few weeks since this episode, I've really, and it's been a struggle, but I've really challenged myself to just let go of chasing an agenda. And what I've started to observe as a result of this is that when women put an agenda, a goal, an end line, an outcome above and beyond the here and now, we fall into the habit of forcing ourselves to show up, of forcing ourselves to do what doesn't feel great because the outcome feels so big. Now, this may seem counterproductive and counterintuitive, particularly if you are a woman in business, because, and I know these words have come out of my mouth in more than one time, but when we are striving for a goal, when we are striving to add value to our lives, when we are striving to achieve something that enables us to give more to our family, our children, or our friends, we often go into that space of forcing because the outcome is so desirable. And what I'm starting to realize that although that at times is required, it is not suitable for long-term activity. And this is the trap that I think way too many women are falling into. We're not using these short-term bursts of activity to strive towards outcomes for the big dreams, the big things that we want to achieve in our life. Instead, we are using this forced activity for everyday small tasks that we set ourselves, that we feel we need to achieve in order to be successful, to be happy, to be what they want us to be. We've developed this habit of living life by force. And force is not a natural feminine way of living. Because if we look at ourselves as women, we are designed to be cyclic. We are designed to have active moments, and we are designed to have slow, flow-based moments. This is why we have a hormone cycle. This is why we have a period. This is why we traditionally our energy levels work with the full moon in a cycle where there is an ebb and flow, a high and a low, an action and a rest. And too many women nowadays are living in force, living in action, and not giving ourselves the space nor time to appreciate and create space for flow. Now, if we look at what forcing our life looks like, what that results in, we create space for overwhelm. We create space for stress. We generate opportunities for discontentment because everything that we have right now isn't enough because something else needs to be done. This can result in us being hard on ourselves, harshly judging and criticizing what we are or are not doing. Most importantly, living life in constant force is taking us away from the gift of here and now, because our focus is always on what the next step is, what the next goal, what the next action needs to be in order for us to have X, Y, Z. So force is robbing us as women from the here and now. So how do we get out of this habit of force? What did I do when I recognized that forcing myself was setting myself up for burnout? Well, as mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I put my hands up and I quit. I quit the need to force myself to achieve anything more than what felt good. And I quit putting things that truly didn't matter to me as my goalposts. Things like the income, the numbers, the influence. I spent so much of my time focusing on achieving numbers that I perceived others would consider successful, that I stopped behaving and acting from a space that made me feel good, that brought joy and happiness to my life. And so I quit. I quit the numbers. I quit running through an action list all of the time. Now, I am still a busy woman. I have 4 roles within my business. I also support my husband's concreting business, and I'm a mum to 2 special needs kids. So when I say I quit forcing, I don't mean that I'm sitting around the house all day with my socks on my feet, cozied up underneath a rug watching Netflix. But what I have done is I have stopped putting myself into a position where I am constantly running. I have prioritized downtime. I have prioritized listening to my body's needs. And I have prioritized doing the actions and the things that bring me the greatest amount of satisfaction and joy. As a result, I feel as though I am living more in flow, more in aligned choices. I am moving my focus away from feeling stressed and overwhelmed and constantly switched on to a space of contentment, satisfaction, and presence. When I'm with my clients, I am with my clients 120%. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids 120%. Because no longer am I thinking about what the next thing I need to be doing is. I'm allowing myself to let go of that forced action, and I'm coming back to a space of flowing. So, how do you get out of force and into flow? Firstly, I really encourage you to start looking at what force currently looks like to you. If you are spending your day dragging your feet around, feeling exhausted, feeling like everything is a chore, chances are you're in force. If you are not able to rest and really appreciate the down moments because you're thinking about everything that has to get done or everything that hasn't been done, you're in force. If you are feeling like you are just showing up because it's expected of you, not because it's what you truly want, again, you are in force. So, identify the things that feel forceful to you, and then start to explore the alternatives. Start to look at new ways that you can do these activities that feel more aligned to you. Now, I don't live in a fantasy world, and I don't expect that you do either. So I know there are some things that we need to do that don't feel great all of the time. However, what we can always control is how they are done and how we show up for them. So if you're showing up to something that doesn't feel good, what can you do about that situation to make it feel better to you and in you? Because when you go into a situation where you feel better, you're going to be able to fully immerse yourself in that space more organically. And ultimately, that is what flow is. Flow is living your life organically with ease and grace. One great thing that I have implemented into my very busy life is only looking at what I need to focus on right now. My calendar is booked in advance. People book in to speak with me up to 3 weeks before they can actually speak to me. I don't know that because I only look at this 24-hour period. Even today, as I record this episode, I have no idea what my calendar has in store for me tomorrow, because I know the minute that I look at that, I'm going to start planning tomorrow out. I'm going to start creating these overactive thoughts that take me away from the here and now, that take me away from flow and put me into force, because I'm no longer being fully present and engaged in whatever's going on for right now. So that little tip of not looking ahead has really saved my sanity and helped me to stay in the present moment, to stay in my state of flow. And if you are a busy woman, then I encourage you to do the same thing. Use your calendar to your advantage. Mark times out for everything that is important to you, including downtime, including rest time. And if you've been tracking your cycle and you know when your downtime is for the month, allocate large chunks of downtime out for that week, knowing that you are going to need it. And then honour that time when it is due. And when you know that you're dynamic, when you know you're switched on, when you know that your work is effortless because your energy is engaged, make the most of that. And know that because you are capitalizing on that deep, energized moment, you're going to show up in flow and not in force, because you are choosing to allocate your time based on what feels great for you. I've been watching, I'm a bit of a geek, and I really love watching old history shows, particularly architectural history. And I was watching one on old English castles a little while ago. And one quote came to mind, one quote that the lady was talking about. And I thought, this is such a great representation of force and flow. Because force is often looking at the minute details. It's being so hyper-focused on all of the things that you have to do between time A and time B that you forget about the big picture. And because we spend so much time in force, we're often identifying all of the faults, all of the things that we didn't do well, all the things that we need to improve on. So we are naturally focusing on the negative. When you go into flow, you've got more trust that the bigger picture, the picture that actually makes up your life, is going to work out just fine, regardless of timeline, regardless of activities, and regardless of outcome. Flow allows you to see the greater picture, to see that those small failures, those small challenges and moments in life that caused faults are actually part of something that make a complete picture beautiful. And the quote from this documentary was this: failure can become beautiful as part of the whole. So when we take our attention away from force, when we take our attention away from those minute, tiny details that are currently taking up so much of our energy, and we step back, we come back into flow, into doing and thinking and being what feels good, we can see that even though there are failures along our life path, the overall picture is beautiful as a whole. So my message for you this week is to identify when you go into force. And as a sort of guidepost, force is anything that doesn't make you feel good. When you feel stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, when you feel guilty, when you feel under the pump and it's not encouraging you or motivating you or inspiring you, you are acting and living your life from a space of force. And that is not organic, authentic, or honest. To yourself, that is. So, when you recognize that you are in force, when it's not feeling good, take a breath. Come back to this moment right here, right now, and make an action-based decision based on what feels good to you. Clear those thoughts and bring it back to those moments that make you appreciate what you have right here, right now. And the more you can define what flow looks like to you, the more you can trust that everything will get done. The outcomes that you desire will be achieved. That is all inevitable, particularly when you live your life based on what feels good. Then you will experience flow. And flow is going to set you up to experience even more emotional control, calm, and confidence. And that is what we want when we say own your BS. We want you to subtract those things that don't make you feel good and engage in those things that do. Until next week, have a fantastic 7 days, and I'll talk to you soon.